Hi everyone, this is Jan with What You Make It, and several of you have asked me how I send my cards that may be a little more dimensional than you can fit in a regular mailing envelope, and I keep meaning to do a tutorial on it, and I'm about to need to send one, so I thought I would just invite you into the studio while I'm creating this. Now, I have recently purchased this die from Paper Tray Ink. It's called the Bulk Mail Die. Great name. It's what it does. But you need to cut two pieces with it, and you can get two out of one 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. This is, let's just see, it's 5 1/4, so you put it, you can get one from the upper half and one from the bottom, with just very little waste on your paper. So I cut two of these, but if you do not have or even want to purchase this die, you can see that it's a really simple thing to do. You need a little bit of a bottom flap. You need a flap up here that will fold a couple of times, and then you need your side flaps. So you could make your own box. In fact, I've done it for years. Getting to send dimensional cards like this is really fun for me, and I always think of it as that I get to bless the postman or postwoman, whoever it is that picks it up and delivers it, something pretty for them to look at, and then it's fun to get something that's kind of snazzy jazzy in the mail. So, and as you know, sometimes it takes us a long time to make those special cards, so we want it to get all the fanfare that it possibly can. So before I do any scoring or actually putting the box together, I want to do my stamping. And I'm going to create an area to put the recipient's address and my return address. And I'm just using some classic craft cardstock, and I'm going to use a dark chocolate brown for both of these labels. And kind of bring it down and over so I have plenty of room for my return address. So now let's get the return address. I'm just using these angled labels. I think they have kind of a vintagey look to them. I like them. And if you do all of this before you start assembling your box, it's just really easy. There we go. Now I've made some masks. You could use sticky notes, or this is some Eclipse masking paper, just slightly tacky, just enough to hold it down and cover up that area, so I'm not having to be careful about working around it. Okay, and I'm going to do a little background stamping, so let me get those stamps ready and I'll be back. begin putting our box together, and even though it was marked with the die with the scores, I'm reinforcing those scores that are on the 1/4 inch mark because this is really heavy cardstock, and you just want to go over each of those because that 1/4 inch lip out there is what builds the depth of the box. Now here's how I found to fold this, because we're using really heavy cardstock. If you will put a straight edge like a ruler against it and then pull the rest of the cardstock towards you, it actually helps it bend really well. If you're not using super heavy cardstock, you don't have to do this, but I definitely recommend using your bone folder to kind of reinforce those folds and make them nice and crisp, because the crisper you make this fold right now, the crisper your box is going to turn out. So you can see I'm kind of folding those flaps together, and I do a little bit of a dry fit just to make sure that it will work really well. And on one end I'm going to remove that one lip that's there, because you make duplicates. It's just easier to use the single die. I just found that it's easier to remove that one lip. Okay, so I use this zip dry glue. It is kind of like rubber cement. It dries really quickly. If it oozes out, you can remove it when it's dry just by rubbing it. And I'm taking those little flaps and I'm making that little box down there. And now on the other one, I'm putting that glue all the way around. I want it to be good and strong, reinforce it, and I'm just going to set that down inside and use my fingers, and then when it gets a little tight, I think I'll even probably pick up a pair of scissors or something to make sure that that fits really nicely and is good and tight. The more crisp and tight you make those connections, the better your box is. You can see now I have this little envelope. It's put together really well, and it'll really accommodate, even if I have things that are hanging off of the edge, it still will accommodate that mailing and gets it there nice and protected. So anyway, so many of you had asked, I thought I would show you what I did. I ended up sending this one to Sybil, and I think my card got there safe and sound, so I know that it will get there for you. Appreciate you stopping by. I hope you take some time for creative play and come back and visit again real soon.